So, I hear you're on welfare. Aren't you ashamed? Alice was my wife, but we divorced after she had an affair. Now, she's remarried to George, the guy she had an affair with. I wonder who told her I'm receiving welfare. It's true that I'm currently unemployed, but I saw it as a reward for getting through a tough year. Who are you mistaking me for? I'm not on welfare. What? But you left your job, right? Aren't you on welfare because of that? Alice seemed more shocked and unsettled than I had imagined. I kept a straight face and said to her, "Well, I do have assets worth $10 million. My name is John Smith. I'm a 42-year-old IT engineer. You might think it's a stylish and cool job just by hearing my profession. But my daily life as an IT engineer was somewhat lackluster. I live quite far from downtown, so my commute is lengthy. Every morning I woke up early and spent 2 hours commuting by bus and train. I worked quietly, and if I missed the last train due to overtime, I stayed at a cheap inn because I couldn't afford a hotel. I didn't drink and interact much with colleagues, so my days would end with just the commute between home and office. Once I got home, I would seclude myself in my room and delved into developing cell phone apps as a hobby. Some apps I've developed were already released and used by many. I wasn't into gambling or investing, but maybe buying lottery tickets every New Year's Eve was an exception. I've been doing it for years. Sometimes I won small amounts and felt joy. My life was monotonous and solitary, rarely sharing happiness with anyone. I guess days would pass as it was, and I'd age. Thinking about it felt a bit lonely. But for that time, I just drifted along. In such circumstances, a twist of fate led to my marriage. My wife's name was Alice. She was 4 years younger than me. A few of my scarce friends, concerned about my lack of female companionship, introduced her to me. She seemed plain but genuine at first, and I, disliking showiness, felt drawn to Alice. I wondered what Alice found attractive in me. Alice rarely shared her true feelings, but when I asked, she said, "I want a stable life and a secure future." Both Alice and I had long passed the usual marriage age, and felt quite anxious about our futures. With the thought of this could be our last chance for marriage, I proposed, and Alice thought along the same lines. Maybe Alice would have married anyone who proposed. So, we got married and started living in the 2-bedroom house I had rented as a bachelor. I wanted children, but Alice was already in her late 30s, facing the risks of a late pregnancy. It's going to be tough having a child at our age. Imagine our age when the child turns 20. There's no upside to it, so let's not push for kids. I felt disappointed, but Alice's point seemed valid, so I gave up on the idea of children. Without the cost of raising kids, we could manage on my salary alone. But that's only because I led a simple life without expensive hobbies. The woman next door had a beautiful bag. I'd love one like that. A designer bag. We don't need something so pricey. There are plenty of affordable bags that would do. You're really dull, you know that. Is your life even enjoyable? According to Alice, the more money you have, the more enjoyable life is. Saying that my salary alone couldn't provide a fun life, Alice started working part-time at a local supermarket. The supermarket opened at 10 a.m., but she had to be there by 9 a.m. for opening preparations. Her shift varied, so sometimes when I get home early, she wasn't back yet. On those occasions, I would quickly whip up something to eat using whatever was in the fridge. My cooking was quite popular with Alice, especially when she returned exhausted. I wondered how much Alice was earning. Since she didn't share her earnings, I had no idea how much discretionary money she had. But seeing her buy several of her favorite brand bags and upscale cosmetics, I guessed she was working pretty hard. I didn't mind how Alice spent the money she earned through her efforts. Sometimes I wondered if we were truly happy in our marriage. I had no complaints about Alice, and she seemed to live freely. But we were not the couple who fell passionately in love. The truth was, both Alice and I felt like we were missing something in our lives. I first noticed a change in Alice about 6 months after she started her part-time job. I didn't have a strong desire to excel at work, so I tried to leave on time without doing overtime. But due to my long commute, I usually got home around 8 or 9 p.m. However, Alice no longer greeted me when I got home. "I'm really busy with work. These days, the supermarket stays open until 9 p.m. After that, there's a lot of prep for the next day and handovers to be done." Despite having started the job just 6 months ago, I was impressed that she had become such a valuable team member. "Well, that's great you're enjoying your job. We don't have kids, and I can take care of myself. Keep up the good work." Alice replied with a thank you and a smile, and ate the late dinner I had made. One Sunday, while I was cleaning the yard, our neighbor, a gossip lover named Susan, approached me. "Hi John, is your wife working today?" "Yes, she hardly gets any days off, but she seems to be enjoying her work, so I'm not worried." "Oh, is that so? If the husband is okay with it, maybe I shouldn't say anything." "What do you mean? Is something wrong with my wife?" Susan looked around nervously to make sure no one was listening, then whispered, "Your wife is having an affair with the supermarket manager. Several people have seen them together." I felt like I had been hit on the head. Alice is having an affair. I had naively reassured myself that Alice, being a plain woman, wouldn't get involved in such things with other men. However, lately, her makeup and clothes have become more flamboyant. Perhaps men who like flashy women would be attracted to her. But that doesn't mean I can easily accept such a story. No way, my wife would never do that. I trust her. "You're naive, aren't you? Anyone who sees her flashy getup these days would notice. You should confront her about it." Indeed, Alice had lost the simple charm I loved, and had completely switched to a flashy style. If this change was to please her lover, I couldn't ignore it. I immediately confronted Alice about the affair. Alice admitted to the affair without hesitation. "I want a divorce. I love George, the manager. For the first time in my life, I feel truly alive and in love. Marrying you in a hurry because of our rage was a mistake." How could she say something so cruel? Was our married life really that unenjoyable? I thought I had done everything I could for Alice, making compromises where possible. To be told that our marriage was a mistake. Feeling angry, I clenched my fists, trying hard to stay calm. Alice, seemingly indifferent to my feelings, suddenly stood up and went to the bedroom. Unable to bring myself to sleep in the same room, I spent the night on the living room sofa. The next day, Alice said, "We need to cool off a bit," and went back to her parents' house. A few days later, a woman claiming to be George's wife came to my house. "Hi, I'm Linda, George's wife. My husband wants to divorce me, and it seems your wife is the reason." I listened to Linda's story in detail. George and Linda had a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, and Linda's days were consumed with childcare. "My husband's feelings have drifted away. He says he no longer finds me attractive now that I've become more of a mother than a wife. He told me he wants to live with the person he loves, so we should get divorced." George's selfish logic infuriated me. If Linda and I had done something wrong to our partners, I would understand. But we hadn't done anything wrong. At most, our plain and steady lifestyles led to a lack of excitement. What does he mean by "I want to live with the person I love, so let's get divorced"? For Alice, I was just a boring existence, as Linda was for George. "If we divorce, I will demand alimony from your wife. You should also claim it from George. They'll probably marry each other, but I don't want them to have an easy start to their marriage life." I felt the same way. Linda was being discarded by George, and I was being abandoned by Alice. Meeting Linda and talking to her helped me decide the divorce with Alice. I understand. I will also claim alimony from George and my wife. You should do the same, Linda. Money alone can't make people happy, but it's better to have some. Let's seek our own happiness. So, Alice and I got divorced, and Linda did the same with George. Alice and George quietly paid the alimony and child support we demanded. It was as if, now that they had found their true love, money didn't matter to them anymore, and no words could reach them in their delirium. I just wanted to say, do whatever you want. Alice and George moved out of town and started living in the next town over, and I threw away everything Alice had used and started a new life. Even after the divorce, I continued living in the rental house I shared with Alice. I didn't want the hassle of moving to a different apartment and thought it best to wait until I was more prepared for such a change. After the divorce, I quit the job I had for many years and started spending my days leisurely at home. I knew the neighbors were gossiping that I quit my job because of the shock of the divorce. But I didn't care what they said. Working on my computer whenever I liked, and dedicating myself to gardening when the weather was nice. I spent my days leisurely. One day, the neighborhood gossip, Susan, approached me again. John, did you quit your job? You're always home during the day. Yes, I just can't bring myself to work right now. I'm taking some time for mental rest. Susan looked at me with a puzzled expression and said, I see. By the way, someone said they saw you at the city hall. Is that true? Yes, I have been going to the city hall once a month lately. Susan's eyes widened for a moment before she muttered something mysterious and left saying, well, see you later. Soon, I started feeling that the neighbors' gazes were different. At first, I didn't notice, but it seemed like they pitied me. Sure, the story of my wife Alice cheating with the local supermarket manager George and leaving was embarrassing, and I understood their sympathy. I thought they pitied me for that reason. However, I soon realized it was not just that. There was a rumor about me circulating. It was that I was living on welfare. Susan was the source of the rumor. She deduced this from the fact that I was jobless and always at home, going to the city hall once a month, and still living in a shabby rental house despite my divorce. She theorized that I didn't work because I was getting welfare payments. That my monthly city hall visits were to collect welfare checks. And that I couldn't move out of the shabby house because living in a nicer place would disqualify me from receiving welfare. I just smiled wryly, thinking, so that's what it is, but continued my days as usual. Indeed, I'm not working right now. But I considered it a reward for overcoming the pain of divorce. One day, I went to a shopping mall a bit far from home to buy gardening supplies. After shopping, I sat on a bench to relax and spotted a familiar woman. It was Alice. Alice was dressed in cheap clothes, hardly looking well off, and quickly approached me when she saw me. It's been a while. How have you been? She asked. As I didn't respond, she just sat down beside me. She stared at my clothes, confirming that I was still dressed plainly as ever. With a smirk, Alice said to me, so, I heard you're on welfare. Aren't you embarrassed? I couldn't believe that the rumor had reached Alice, living in the next town. After betraying me and causing me so much pain, was she now mocking my misery? The first thing I felt upon hearing her words was that she probably wasn't in a happy situation herself. If Alice were happy, she wouldn't bother about me and would have just passed by. Unhappy herself, she couldn't resist the urge to hear about someone else's misfortune. In other words, she wanted to feel better by finding someone worse off than her. I had heard about Linda's recent situation. After receiving alimony and child support, Linda was receiving every possible allowance and worked hard. She must be living more comfortably than Alice, who was financially strained after paying alimony and child support. So, hearing about Linda probably infuriated Alice. And now she was meddling with me, someone she perceived as unfortunate. Such a poor woman. Suppressing my amusement, I pretended not to understand what she meant. Who are you confusing me with? I'm not on welfare. What? But you quit your job, right? Aren't you on welfare because of that? Alice was more surprised and flustered than I had imagined. I did quit my job. Living without working isn't bad, but it would make life boring. Right now, I'm preparing for the next chapter of my life. Once I'm ready, I plan to move out of that rental house. Alice's face turned increasingly anxious. How can you live without working? And I heard you go to the city hall once a month. Isn't that to collect welfare? Susan's notorious gossiping. I didn't expect the rumor to be this detailed. I explained to Alice deliberately. The reason I can live without working is that I have money. My monthly visits to the city hall are for the legal consultations they provide. I've rested enough and I'm thinking about starting a business. Money. Starting a business. Alice became more confused. Weren't you just a regular employee with hardly any money, and you quit your job, starting a business? Are you crazy? When we were married, I had given Alice access to all my savings accounts. So, she knew very well that I didn't have much money back then. In her mind, if I had money, she wouldn't have left me for George. Keeping a straight face, I told Alice. Well, I do have assets worth $10 million. Alice's mouth dropped open in disbelief, uttering a stunned what? Yes, I now have assets worth $10 million. Let me explain how it all happened. I think I mentioned before that I have a hobby of buying lottery tickets. I've never gambled on things like casinos or horse racing, but lottery tickets are a kind of gamble in a broad sense. You buy a ticket and get to dream big until the day of the draw. I used to spend about $1,000 a year on lottery tickets, saving up my allowance. While married, I gave up buying lottery tickets to help ease the family budget, thinking about our family's future. But after the divorce, such considerations didn't matter anymore. 2 months after separating from Alice, I casually went for a walk and ended up in the shopping district. There was a long line in front of me, and when I peeked, it led to a lottery ticket booth. Oh, the New Year's lottery tickets are on sale now. Feeling an urge to buy due to the long wait, I rushed to an ATM and withdrew $2,000. I handed the $2,000 to the ticket seller, who smiled and said, "I wish you luck." Somehow, it felt like there was a halo around the vendor's head. From that moment, I had a strange premonition and started attending seminars for people wanting to start their own businesses, with no real basis for my actions. To make room for new beginnings, I cleared out old items I had kept for memories. I sorted out the past to start anew for myself. Then, on the lottery draw day, I checked the official website and confirmed that I had won a total of $10 million, including the front and back prizes. Despite my strange premonition, I never really thought I would actually win. The emotions were beyond just happiness or surprise. I probably spent half the day in a daze. Having received $10 million, I tried not to change my life drastically. I kept the win a secret to myself. I didn't even tell my parents about it. I knew that if people found out, suddenly unknown relatives and best friends would appear out of nowhere. Building a mansion would have been a dead giveaway. I decided not to indulge in frivolous luxuries, saving the money for what I truly wanted to do. First, as a reward for years of hard work, I took some time to relax. I resigned from my job and spent more time gardening, basking in the sunlight. Gardening turned out to be quite interesting, and my small garden soon bloomed with vibrant colors. After 2 months, I got bored of resting and began looking for collaborators to prepare for starting my own business. It felt like my unremarkable life and the failure to find a good partner were trials for this reward of $10 million. Being able to tell Alice about my assets now is like a reward from God for all the hardships I endured. Another stroke of luck was that the lottery win happened after our divorce. If I had won it while I was married to Alice, she would have probably squandered it. Eventually, Alice came to her senses and started interrogating me fiercely. "Why didn't you tell me you had assets worth $10 million when we were married?" Alice asked. "I didn't have such assets while we were married, but I had no intention of clarifying that." I feigned ignorance and smiled. "So, you're saying you wouldn't have divorced me if you knew?" Alice, struck by the core of the matter, stuttered. "Well, that is, you married me in a hurry, right? Now that you've found true love, you should be happy with George." Alice screamed in frustration. "Don't joke with me, you big liar." Although being called a liar was slightly irritating, I couldn't help but feel sorry for Alice. I knew she was currently struggling financially. She had been demanded alimony by both Linda and me, and her part-time earnings were taken away, even resorting to borrowing from relatives. Alice twisted her mouth in frustration. "George doesn't have assets worth $10 million. Of course he wouldn't. It's not common for someone close to you having $10 million. George now has to pay alimony for both of his kids until they become adults, which means tight finances for almost the next 20 years. As I stayed silent, Alice, looking down, hesitantly began to speak. "I actually regret divorcing you." "Why, aren't you happy now?" I asked. "Not at all. Things aren't going well with George. When we both had our families, there was some thrill and excitement every day." "You don't feel excited now?" Alice sighed deeply. "Not at all. We just fight whenever we see each other." "Hey, John, can't we start over?" I was shocked and dismayed at her sudden proposition. "Start over with me? That's quite presumptuous." "I'll change. You don't have a girlfriend now, do you?" Honestly, I was so angry with Alice, I felt like spitting in her face. The nerve of her, suggesting we get back together after everything. The emotional scars she left on me will probably never heal. "I don't have a girlfriend, but even if I stay single for the rest of my life, I'd never get back together with you." I thought I made myself clear, but Alice wouldn't give up. "Then could you at least lend me $100,000? I'll definitely pay you back. $100,000 is nothing for someone with $10 million. The audacity of her request. I struggled to maintain my composure and keep a calm face. I have no intention of lending money to anyone, especially not to someone who betrayed me. If I had $100,000 to spare, I'd rather donate it to some facility." Alice bit her lip in frustration and muttered softly, "I see. All right. I'll have to figure it out on my own." After saying that, Alice stood up from the bench, her steps heavy as she walked away. Whenever I'm in the garden, Susan almost always appears and chats about various things. Susan's antenna is even tuned into what's happening with Alice and others living in the neighboring town. Alice seems to be having a hard time. She's not getting along with her husband. I also heard that they started living separately the other day. Living separated, huh? Does that mean they're heading towards divorce? Alice really did something foolish. Affairs that cause others misery always come back to bite you in the end. It's like that with celebrities too, right? I'm not sure whether everyone who does such things faces repercussions, but there are certainly people who do. I wonder how they're managing financially after the separation. Is Alice working part-time again? Apparently, she's resorting to cash advances to cover living expenses. Once it reaches that point, it's pretty much over, and her husband, George, was fired from the supermarket and is now working day-to-day jobs. It seems Susan is well informed about Alice and George's financial situation. If someone like her found out I won $10 million in the lottery, it would cause quite a stir. I planned to keep it a secret while I was in this town, and then moved to an unknown place when the time was right. Eventually, I heard that Alice and George got divorced. Now that she had no reliable partner, she might turn to me again. So, I quickly bought a condo in an area closer to the center of the city, far from this town, and moved there. I invested part of my $10 million as capital and started my own IT business company. I rented a small office and began with just 3 employees, including myself. Not even my closest employees know about my $10 million asset. I believe keeping it a secret is best for maintaining close relationships. The business is doing well, and work is increasing, so I'm thinking of hiring more staff. Being a single company president, I often get introduced to wonderful women by business partners. Once the business stabilizes, considering remarriage doesn't seem like a bad idea. I feel like I'm experiencing a second youth, eager to give my all to both work and love. Surprise, surprise, it's a client of ours. I'm the one handling your company's account. You should be grateful you can make a living thanks to me. Time to thank me. That's what my old classmate, Jack, said with a laugh when he heard where I work. We had reconnected at a middle school reunion, and it seems like after graduating from Harvard, Jack's been working at a major real estate company. His entourage found it hilarious, chiming in with "no way," while Jack himself seemed quite pleased, laughing heartily. In that moment, I felt my patience snap. I immediately shrugged off his hand with all my might, and, with a beaming smile, I told Jack, "Oh, is that so? Well then, let's call off our business deal." I decided then to expose all the information I had and bring him down. My name is George. I'm 42 years old, working at a company that develops and supports apps used by other businesses. Our company's unique selling point is our ability to create customized apps. We handle everything from development to support, tailoring functionalities to each company's needs. We're popular among businesses wanting apps customized for their specific requirements, and we do make a decent profit. Now, I find great satisfaction in my work, but originally, I wasn't interested in app development. Due to family circumstances, I had to start working immediately after graduating middle school, so I didn't have the luxury of choosing a job based on what I wanted to do. Back then, my choices were based solely on salary and benefits, and I sought positions that didn't require a high school diploma. My current company, a kind of startup, was looking for a wide range of talents and didn't focus on educational background. What caught my eye, though, was the flexibility in taking time off. I applied right away, though it seems they weren't expecting a middle school graduate to show up. The interviewer was a bit perplexed, but the company president, who happened to be there, decided to hire me, thinking I'd learn quickly since I had less formal education. The reason I had to work right out of middle school was my father fell. My mother had passed away from illness before I even started elementary school. After that, my father threw himself into his work, as if to escape the pain. But the loss of his beloved wife took its toll. In my second year of middle school, he collapsed, having reached his limit. Seeing this, I resolved to work and support us both. He wasn't in life-threatening condition, but there were days he needed care. That's why being able to take time off was so crucial for me. Over 20 years have passed since then, and recently, Dad's health has been more stable. So, I've been dedicating myself to my job, wanting to repay the company that took a chance on a middle school graduate like me. Then one day, I got an invite to a middle school class reunion. Dad, who's always seen me buried in work, suggested I go. But I was feeling a bit conflicted. It was because of this guy, Jack, who was a classmate back then. Jack, the son of a wealthy family, lived in the biggest house in town and was dead set on becoming a wealthy elite himself. He was the kind of guy who had to be the best at everything, whether it was sports or studies, and I remember him being quite a handful. Back in the day, I was pretty smart and enjoyed studying, so I often scored higher than Jack on tests. Despite his obsession with being the best, Jack seemed to hate studying, as I hardly ever saw him hit the books outside of class. As a result, he resented losing to me and started to bully me. For instance, I used to make my own lunches because my mom wasn't around, and Jack would loudly comment in front of the whole class about how pitiful and poorly colored they were. Then he'd go further, saying it was sad that I had no mom and that my dad didn't care about me. But I didn't think he was worth the trouble, so I just ignored him back then. I knew I was valued by my dad, and though I was annoyed about the lunch comments, I had to admit they didn't look that great. I didn't want to meet Jack, but I was curious about what my old friends were up to. I felt it would be a waste to miss out just because of him, so I decided to go. The reunion was like a casual standing party, where everyone chatted with friends wherever they pleased. I had wondered if I would be able to recognize anyone by face. Surprisingly, everyone still retained their familiar looks, and I was able to quickly reunite with my old friend Mike, with whom I had been close back then. We never ran out of things to talk about, and within 5 minutes, it was like we were back in middle school. Amidst the fun, one person stood out in the center of the room. It was, of course, Jack, looking every bit the elite from a comic book, in a clearly branded suit and a gold luxury watch. He seemed very pleased with his life and career. When asked about his job or family, he'd answer loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. That's how I learned he graduated from Harvard, works at a major real estate company, has a wife and daughter, and his suit cost over $10,000. Many tried to get close to wealthy Jack in middle school, hoping for benefits, and he was surrounded by classmates acting like his entourage today, too. Mike and I, never fans of such crowds, chatted away in a corner, hoping to avoid Jack. Suddenly, Jack raised his voice. "By the way, where's George?" Too ashamed to show up at the reunion, being a middle school graduate and all. His voice dripped with mockery, and both Mike and I cringed. I hoped to go unnoticed, but with only about 20 people, it was inevitable. His followers quickly spotted us and pointed. Jack approached us with a condescending smile, still basking in the flattery from his group. Mike and I turned to face him as Jack arrived. To think, a middle school graduate George and his friend Mike managed to show up. Jack, who had approached us, scrutinized my outfit while laughing. Mike, seemingly exasperated, quietly observed us while fiddling with his cell phone. In Jack's mind, a middle school graduate equaled being unemployed, it seemed. Sure, someone who graduated from Harvard and worked at a major real estate company probably didn't encounter many middle school graduates. So I thought, maybe his perspective is limited, and reluctantly replied, "I'm not unemployed. I work just like anyone else." At my words, Jack struck a pose of surprise. His followers laughed uproariously, and I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Surprised? A company actually hired someone like you. Name it, I bet it's just some small business, Jack taunted. Then, he proudly mentioned the name of the company he worked for. Indeed, Jack's company was a well-known, top-tier real estate firm. This was evident from his appearance, which suggested he was well compensated. I named my workplace while feeling disgusted at his arrogance. Jack's eyes widened, then he burst into a vulgar laugh. "Surprise! You work for one of our clients," he exclaimed. "I handle your company's account. You owe your livelihood to me, so thank me." Suddenly, Jack grabbed my head. I never expected him to resort to physical force, and I was shocked as I tried to pry his hand off. His followers were laughing, saying no way, and Jack seemed to be in a good mood, laughing along. That's when I heard my patience snap. I swiftly shrugged off his hand, smiled broadly, and told Jack, "Oh really? Then let's call off the deal." Jack froze, mouth agape, seemingly confused by my sudden change in demeanor or my words. What are you talking about? You can't have any say in the dealings, can you? Jack clearly thought I had no involvement in his company's dealings. So, with a sigh, I began to explain about the business transactions. Dealing with your company's representative is always a hassle. It's a hot topic at our company. You always look down on us, keep changing your demands, and refuse to pay extra fees. Actually, I am at the core of app development for Jack's company, and also the project manager with the authority to continue or terminate deals. Originally, I was just a manager, but due to the poor attitude of Jack's company, the president told me I could stop negotiations if there were no improvements. Jack, the representative, always acted like he was doing us a favor by using our app, looking down on our company. He demanded additions of new features free of charge, and even after we added features he requested, he would change his mind, saying he didn't need them after all. Such selfish behavior. As I shared this, Jack's face turned pale. Still, he seemed not to grasp the situation fully. Jack glared at me and, trying to mask his unease, raised his voice. So what? If you stop dealing with a company as big as ours, it's you who'll be in trouble. True to form, Jack, oblivious to his position, prompted me to inform him of the reality with a chuckle. Really, if this deal gets terminated, I think it's you who will be in trouble. If you can't use our app anymore, you'll have to change your entire real estate management system. That would certainly jeopardize your position, wouldn't it? Seemingly struck by realization, Jack's eyes darted back and forth. The app his company uses was specially developed by ours. Given that they're a major firm with many properties to manage, our app was the solution to their problem of managing with existing apps and services. However, if our deal ends, Jack's company won't be able to continue using our app. If the company as a whole decides to do so, it might not be a problem, but if it's due to Jack's attitude, it would be a significant issue. Jack would have to take responsibility. Finally grasping the gravity of the situation, Jack still couldn't believe what he had done. "Shut up, there's no way you could do that, you're just bluffing," he shouted and suddenly pushed me on the shoulder. Being shoved by a grown man, I couldn't resist immediately and stumbled to the floor. This finally brought his followers to their senses. "Hey, that might be going too far. Yay, what if he had gotten hurt?" His now sober entourage began whispering among themselves, and Jack finally lost all his supporters. His face growing even paler, Jack trembled, not knowing what to do with the hand he had used to shove me. Fortunately, I wasn't hurt and quickly stood up, ready to speak. "After what you've done, I can't stay silent anymore." Jack braced himself but didn't stop his pretense. "What can you possibly do?" he asked, his voice quivering. My next words seemed to completely unsettle Jack. "You're in a pretty bad position at your company, aren't you? Tyler is your boss, right?" As I mentioned his boss's name, Jack's eyes widened. "Tyler is a regular at my favorite bar and a somewhat close friend. We became friends after sharing a table on a busy day, and later I discovered he was Jack's direct superior. In other words, I was already familiar with the company Jack works for. Although I wasn't in sales, so I didn't know Jack was our contact, I had heard various complaints about him from Tyler. Jack, proud of his Harvard degree, often ignored work explanations and made frequent mistakes. His attitude was disliked in the office, causing discord, yet he insisted he was an elite and not at fault. Moreover, despite having a wife and child, he had been seen inviting young female colleagues to dinner and making inappropriate physical contact, which troubled Tyler. As I revealed these stories, the next person to shout wasn't Jack. "What do you mean by that?" The person who shouted was Jack's wife, a woman named Emily. Actually, Jack's wife was a middle school classmate of mine, and she was also attending today's reunion. Jack was at a loss, flustered by his wife's angry yelling. You said things were going well at work and that's why you came home late. But to think. His wife yelled hysterically, almost lunging at him. Jack, angered by his wife's reaction, replied loudly. Do you really believe what this middle school graduate is saying? Jack exclaimed. However, it seemed his wife had her own side of the story, and their argument escalated quickly. Apparently, Jack hadn't been showing his wife his paycheck, and hadn't been contributing much to the household finances. His wife harbored suspicions, and today's revelations seemed to have been the last straw. From what Tyler said, Jack's company is quite a respectable firm. His late arrivals at home were probably not due to work, but rather, spending time with other women. And if he showed his paycheck, the lack of overtime pay would reveal that he wasn't working late. He probably hadn't shared his paycheck to avoid being exposed, but it seemed to have backfired. As his wife loudly demanded an explanation, Jack desperately tried to make excuses. Amidst the chaos, I made a call to my company. Even though it was a holiday, I figured our president, Matthew, might be at work. As expected, I got through to Matthew and explained the day's events. Therefore, I don't see any improvement in their attitude. I'm thinking of ending our business with them, I told him. Matthew agreed, trusting my judgment. He's always had faith in me, a middle school graduate who continued to improve skills and work diligently. He trusted my decision in this matter too, and I thanked him before hanging up. It wasn't just me who was troubled by Jack's unreasonable demands. Our sales team was often looked down upon and faced rude remarks and troublesome requests from him. Even if we stop dealing with such a troublesome company, we can still get requests from other companies. In fact, not having our time consumed unnecessarily might even improve efficiency, as I previously discussed with Matthew. After the call, I looked back at Jack, still arguing with his wife. The atmosphere around had turned sour as everyone seemed fed up with the situation. I decided to let Jack know one last thing during a break in their argument. I've got approval from Matthew to end our dealings. Your company will be notified soon. Jack, in disbelief, confronted me. There's no proof of anything I said today. I'll stop this from happening, saying you lied. He raged. As Jack carried on, I was almost at my wit's end. I thought there was no evidence, but then Mike approached. Too bad, Jack. I recorded everything you said and did. Mike showed his cell phone screen, which displayed Jack pushing me. I had thought Mike was just playing with his phone out of disgust for Jack, but he had been recording the whole time. Jack used to make fun of me too, back in the day. Consider this payback, Mike said. Indeed, Mike, disliked by Jack for being friends with me, had also suffered from Jack's harassment as a result. Mike, coming from a single-parent home and making his own lunches, couldn't just ignore my situation. Jack, increasingly infuriated by the composed Mike, raised his voice. How long are you going to hold on to something from our school days? To Jack, seemingly wanting to let bygones be bygones, Mike angrily retorted. Just because we're adults now doesn't mean the grudges from our school days are gone. Plus, you haven't changed at all, have you? Realizing he had no comeback, Jack seemed to accept defeat. He slumped to his knees, collapsing on the spot. Jack's wife continued to berate him relentlessly. Seeing this, I spoke to Mike about leaving the scene together. This is all the consequence of what you've done so far, Jack. You'd better reflect on it, I told him. Whether Jack heard me or not, he slumped further, adopting a pose as if clinging to the floor. His followers, disillusioned by his behavior, drifted away, leaving only Jack and his furious wife behind. Later, I attached the video Mike had sent me and contacted Jack's company to terminate the deal. The next day, someone higher up than Tyler from Jack's company came to apologize. Pale-faced, they kept begging us to continue the business. He was originally a problematic employee, We've decided to let him go after this incident. We'll change the representative, of course, and we hope to continue our business with you." It turned out everything Tyler had said was true, and discussions about Jack's dismissal had been ongoing. His unreasonable demands seemed to have been his own amusement. We agreed to continue business with a new representative who promised no more unreasonable demands and payment of additional fees. Afterward, Jack was abandoned by his wife, leading to a divorce. Coming home late and barely involved with his child, Jack didn't stand a chance of getting custody and ended up single again. Despite having to pay alimony and child support, Jack also lost his job. For someone who bragged so much about his success, he hit rock bottom all at once. Even his family, upon learning of his situation, told him to solve his problems himself, effectively disowning him. So, Jack was left unable to rely on his family. Now, he's working part-time at a convenience store to make ends meet. Working at a regular company would probably be better, but Jack's previous company was a major corporation. In interviews, abruptly leaving such a prestigious company raised suspicions, making it difficult for him to get hired. His situation became gossip among our classmates, mocked for his former arrogance. After Jack was fired, I first thanked Mike for recording the evidence. Then, Mike, looking a bit embarrassed, said to me, "You know, I've always admired you, George. No matter how much you were bullied, you never gave in." For Mike, my attitude had always been something he aspired to. To me, Mike, who had stayed by my side, seemed more remarkable, but we laughed it off as mutual admiration. Since then, Mike and I have been as close as we were in middle school, even going out for drinks. Mike's belief that school grudges don't just disappear over time proved true. He looked relieved, having finally gotten back at Jack. I agreed, and we enjoyed our drinks. Work-wise, changing the representative from Jack to someone else led to fair pricing and increased profits. Our sales team, too, is relieved and happy, thanking me for taking a firm stand and freeing them from stress. The president, seeing the situation, seems to have gained even more trust in me. It looks like he's even considering promoting me, which has really motivated me to put even more effort into my work. My father, in good health, smiles at my progress. I plan to keep supporting him and continue working hard, staying true to myself. Why do you spend money like that? It's my money, so I can spend it however I want. My name is Brian. I've been married for 6 months, and I was reaching my limit both mentally and physically. The cause of constant fights since our marriage was my wife, Karen's spending habits. As the daughter of a wealthy company president, she had received a substantial amount of money from her parents as a wedding gift. She used that money to buy furniture for our new home, as well as her clothes, bags, and shoes. She never cooked, instead buying ready-made meals from department stores every day. Taking advantage of the fact that I was away at work during the day, she even hired a housekeeper without consulting me. Why don't you understand what I'm saying? I'm just saying we don't need unnecessary things. Besides, you don't even work. You're the one who said it was okay for me to be a housewife. My wife became a full-time housewife immediately after we got married. I thought she did it because she wanted children, but it seemed like there was more to it than that. As I got busier with work and couldn't come home often, she started going out more frequently. I warned her several times, but she didn't listen. One day, she came home completely drunk, being carried by her girlfriends. I was surprised when I saw the taxi receipt. I asked her angrily, "Did you really come from such a far place?" She replied, "It's my money, so it doesn't matter." We had a big fight, and I couldn't take it anymore. I finally said the words that had been repeating in my head over and over again. "Let's get a divorce." Huh, why? I married you because I wanted to build a happy family together. as it is now, is not good for either of us. Well, what should I do then? You're an adult now. Figure it out for yourself. I yelled at my wife and stormed out of the house. At that moment, just being with her was painful for me. I took a train to my parents' house. We used to be so happy just being together when we first met. As I walked outside, I couldn't help but sigh. I remembered the time when I first met my wife. Brian, I've made the copies, and would you like some Morty? Thank you, you're always so thoughtful. She had joined my company as a temp worker. Despite being young, she was remarkably considerate, and despite the more than 10-year age gap between us, I was completely captivated by her charm. Would it be weird if an old guy like me asked you out for a meal? Huh? A meal? With you, Brian. If you don't want to, you can decline. No, not at all. Thank you for asking. She smiled brightly and accepted my invitation. Thank you. Having a meal with you. I'm a bit nervous. I'm nervous too. After that, we went out for meals a few times. Do you mind if I don't pay? It's fine. I invited you. She always said that and took care of me. Thank you so much. She even gave me small gifts. Is it okay to receive a tie like this? I might get the wrong idea. It feels like, what on earth is this guy talking about? Sorry, just kidding. No, it's not a misunderstanding. Huh? After that, my wife and I officially started dating. And we quickly fell for each other and got married. But later on, her job at her family's company became a huge success, and she also received a substantial amount of money as a director. That's when her tendency to overspend started showing. Her lack of attachment to money was astonishing, and I couldn't accept our differing values. So, we divorced easily, and she went back to her parents' house. What was she expecting when she married me? Even if I ask, she who's not here won't answer. There's no point in thinking about answers I can find. After that, my parents recommended a few arranged dates, and I went to meet several women. But each time, thoughts of my ex-wife crossed my mind. I tried cooking stew for the first time. How is it? It's delicious, really. Her smile had stuck in my head. No matter who I was with, all I could think of was my ex-wife. Why can't I forget about her so much? Even though we had such a terrible breakup. I wonder why. The bar proprietress at my regular bar tilted her head while pouring a whiskey. Well, maybe because there were good memories. Here you go. I took a sip of the whiskey that had been placed in front of me. For the next few years, I remained unmarried without remarrying anyone. As you get older, opportunities to meet women are not that common. Then, one day, on my birthday, I received a birthday card from my ex-wife. Happy birthday. I'm really sorry for back then, and thank you so much. I'll treasure what I received from you. What's she talking about? Something irreplaceable. Is she talking about memories? When we parted ways, I had given her a small amount of savings, and I hadn't given her anything else. I couldn't ask her, as the envelope didn't even have a return address. I didn't know her acquaintances or her family's contact information anymore. Had she grown older and was reflecting on things now? Thinking such things, I left the letter in my desk. On that day, as usual, I stopped by the bar on my way home from work. Good evening. The bar proprietress rushed over from the back of the counter. Welcome. Oh, by the way, I heard from a customer yesterday that your ex-wife's father's company, Ab Trading, seems to have gone bankrupt. Oh, really? I became curious about her. I wondered what had happened to her, someone who was so naive about the world, someone who had never experienced financial difficulties. Then, 3 years later, something unexpected happened. I received a letter at my home. It was in a plain white envelope with no sender's name. I had a strange sense of déjà vu and remembered Karen's letter. And I was shocked when I read that letter. I apologize for this sudden letter. I am your son. My son. I read those words over and over again. There shouldn't be any children between her and me. What on earth could this mean? As I continued reading the letter, I learned a shocking truth. My mother realized that she was pregnant with me right after divorcing you, but she didn't have the courage to tell you about it, and it has come to this day. My mother is sick. The doctor today said it might be life-threatening. Please, even if just for a moment, come and see her. And in the letter, there was a note with the address of a certain hospital and a room number. Is Karen hospitalized here? I was guided as if by fate and headed to that hospital. The hospital was close to her parents' house and was a large general hospital. I asked at the reception where the inpatient ward was and searched for the room number mentioned in the note. It's here. Nervously, I reached for the door handle. And then, she, lying in bed, said in surprise, "Why, are you here?" Seeing her like that, I was genuinely surprised. My ex-wife had become emaciated, with gray hair and wrinkles, looking like a completely different person from before. There was no trace of her former self. I received a letter from your son. Alex, you can't be. She opened her eyes wide and stared at me intently. It seems like you haven't remarried. No, Alex is your child. She explained what happened after we parted ways. After we divorced, it seems she realized she was pregnant shortly afterward. But she never told me that she had a child after our separation. My parents took care of the living expenses, so there was no problem. Of course, I thought a child needed a father, but I heard through the grapevine that you were going on arranged dates, so I didn't know what to do. She burst into tears and covered her face with both hands. I was surprised, but it's okay. Your health is not good right now, so please don't worry about it anymore. I couldn't grasp the reality, and that was the best I could say. Is he doing well? Yes. He gave up on going to college for my sake and is working, but I feel so sorry for him. She cried again, her face contorted. Why did you send me a birthday card? I asked curiously, and she replied, I was really out of my mind. I didn't mean to trouble you. I just suddenly wanted to express my gratitude for giving me that child. After her father's company went bankrupt, she quickly became poor, accumulated debt, and had a very tough life. She worked part-time at a fast food restaurant while struggling to make ends meet. I wondered if she had ever been to a fast food restaurant before. After her family's company went under, she was probably on her own, and she must have gone through a lot. Her worn-out appearance was probably not just because of her illness. I began to feel sorry for her and gently hugged her. Although it wasn't apparent from her appearance, her body was skin and bones, and it seemed like it could break with a little force. She had raised her son and lived as a mother with such a fragile body. I also want to do something for Alex as his father. I'm sorry. I couldn't rely on you until now. You were stubborn and never gave in once you decided to do something. I really regret not being more honest, she said in a small voice, still looking down. Can I meet Alex? Of course, he'll be here soon. My heart was pounding, and I felt like it was going to burst. It would be my first meeting with a son I never knew existed. He will accept me, won't he? And then, he casually came in. Mom, are you okay? The young man who entered the hospital room looked quite similar to me. Well, maybe his mouth area resembles her. Are you? My dad. It seemed like he had thought the same thing as me, and he was staring at my face in surprise. Yes, I'm your father. I smiled at him. And he smiled back at me. After that, with my wife in between us, we talked about what had happened to each of us over the past dozen years. I had never been able to forget about her, and I was grateful for being able to meet her again and see my son. Apparently, my son had heard about me from her before. But he didn't want to contact me now that they had become poor. fearing that it might seem opportunistic. However, when he heard that his mother was sick and her life was in danger, he said he really wanted to meet the three of us before she passed away. Then, when I was looking for my mother's pajamas and towels in the room, I found a box with a lot of photos of the two of you. My mother still can't forget about you, so I decided to write the letter. As she spoke, she gazed straight at her son. I realized that I didn't need money anymore. I mean, it's obvious that you can buy really important things with money. She said that and shed big tears. I just wanted to live happily with you. Just realizing that is enough. I hugged her tightly. After that, I visited the hospital almost every day to check on her condition. I was looking forward to meeting my son. She continued her battle against illness for a while, underwent surgery repeatedly, and miraculously recovered, finally being discharged from the hospital. Don't be so nervous. That's right, Dad, my face and body are stiff. Taking a family photo is a first for me. Saying that, he straightened his back and stood up tall. Yes, let's take a family photo. You all have great smiles. I got remarried later on, even though we didn't have a wedding ceremony, but for now, we decided to take a family photo with the three of us. Although I had been separated from my son and wife for a long time, I wanted to slowly fill in the gaps in that time. His annual salary is 3 months of mine. Well, everything he owns is pretty shabby. Haha. I was invited to a mixer just to make up numbers, constantly ridiculed by an acquaintance. In middle school, high school, and now at this mixer too. After all, I was nothing more than a foil for him. I want to escape this boring mixer. I want to go home early. Even someone like me takes pride in having a skill and doing a job that makes people happy. I'm done dealing with people who only see others for their status. My name is David. I'm currently 29, single. Ever since I remember, my parents had a workshop at home, making handcrafted bags to make a living. Using cowhide, they made wallets, card holders, handbags, backpacks, and various other items in their small workshop, always trying to create products that people would cherish. As an only child, I spent my time watching my parents work instead of playing outside. I was quiet and reserved. I loved watching every step of how they made each bag. When I was in 6th grade, I was wondering what to do for my summer project. My mom suggested, "Since it's your last summer in elementary, why not make something with cowhide as a keepsake?" I was thrilled. Can I really? Can I use the sewing machine I've always been told not to touch? Haha, you've always wanted to use the sewing machine, she said. I thought it might be a bit early for you, David, but your dad thinks it's fine. Watching all the time can get boring, right? I've never been bored. What should I make? Tell me. For my last summer in elementary school, my parents, both bad craftsmen, taught me how to make small items from scratch. In less than 5 days, I finished making my first card holder. You finished it pretty quickly, David. Did you enjoy it? My dad praised. I've been watching all this time. I want to make more. Can I make a small wallet? Whoa, hold your horses. Making a wallet is tricky, he warned. I don't mind how many days it takes. I want to try. Teach me. Seeing how excited and happy I was about the first item I made, and how I was completely engrossed in it, my mom said, "It's perfect timing. Next year, you'll be in middle school and will need to carry money." I was thinking of buying you a nice wallet, my dad said. I don't need it. I don't need it. The one I make myself will be enough. Teach me. For my summer project, while my classmates did insect collections, puzzles of USA maps made from cardboard, and wooden dinosaurs and pagodas, I submitted my handmade card holder and small wallet. I wrote that my goal was to use them carefully when I started middle school, with the card holder taking 5 days and the small wallet 18 days to make. As a result, I was awarded the best work in school for the first time, and I rushed home to tell my parents. "You see, you can do it, David. That's my boy. Good for you," my dad said. "Your first self-made item won the best work in school. The teachers must have recognized your effort," my mom added. "It's a great memory for your last summer in elementary. Why don't you help out in the workshop sometimes?" I want to help. I want to learn all sorts of things. Throughout middle and high school, I cherished and used my self-made card holder and wallet until they were worn out. Surely they've reached their limit. It's good to take care of things, but this is a bit much. "Here, I made you a new wallet," my dad said, giving me a new long wallet. "What's this? It's so cool. Amazing. Thanks, Dad." The craftsmanship was on another level. I wanted to take it apart just to see how it was made. When I started college, I began using the new wallet. A unique, warm creation from my dad. But in my sophomore year of college, my kind dad suddenly passed away. I dropped out of college and started my life anew as a bag craftsman, learning the family business from my mom. A few years after I started working in the workshop, a regular customer who sometimes visited to buy products came along. He worked at a nearby publishing company. His name was Sean. Finding out we were the same age, we got along well and became friends outside of business. Sean, intrigued by the demeanor of my mom and me working in the workshop, would come to watch us. "Today, I brought some cream puffs from Moon Bakery. They're really delicious. Please have some with your mom." Occasionally, he would bring snacks and seemed to enjoy talking to me. And since he would buy products we made in the workshop, he was a much appreciated presence. We've been acquainted for over 5 years now. Out of the blue, Sean brought up this topic to me. "David, are you interested in mixers?" "No, I've only been invited 2 or 3 times during college. I'm not really good with such settings because of my personality. It's tough, but I need someone to fill in. Could you come? I'll probably bring down the mood, you know, despite the kind invitation." "It's okay. I'll handle it. Don't worry." Unable to refuse properly due to our important customer relationship, I ended up participating in a mixer I was uncomfortable with. The setup was 5 men and 5 women. And it was happening in just 5 days. Conveniently, it turned out to be a mixer with a perfect group of 5s. Mixer, here I go. For me, it was a sudden and overwhelming situation. But I thought, it's Sean's first favor, and I've been indebted to him. I should cooperate and give him face. The day of the mixer arrived. The meeting place was set for 5 p.m., starting with just the men at the meeting spot of the station, and then joining the women at 6 p.m. at an Italian bar on the sunshine side of the station's east exit. As I was preparing my hair and outfit at home to be presentable, I received a call on my cell phone. "David, sorry, I suddenly got stuck with an unavoidable job. Without you, I won't be able to talk to anyone." It should be fine. I've arranged for someone to replace me. Just go to the meeting spot at the station." No, how is that okay?" "Sorry, got another call, gotta hang up." A mixer without the organizer. Plus, I'm not good with the atmosphere of mixers or talking to people. All strangers, it's completely away game. Let's finish this quickly and go home. I had no choice but to brace myself for what was coming. I arrived at the meetup spot at the station. There were already 4 guys who seemed to be part of the group. "Hi, nice to meet you. I was told by the organizer, Sean, to come here. Aren't you David by any chance?" Kyle. "Wow, I can't believe we're meeting here. I was the one Sean asked to organize this. Man, it's been a while, hasn't it, since we graduated from high school." Among the guys at the mixer, there was Kyle, whom I knew from middle and high school. Back then, I was often teased by him and his group. Contrary to my inconspicuous self, he was a standout, excellent in academics. He was popular in the class. Honestly, he was someone I wanted to keep my distance from, but he always came up to me, spoke ill of me behind my back, lowering my reputation, and would show off his grades by comparing our report cards. He started introducing me to the other 3 guys, mentioning, "This guy, David, used his same old, shabby wallet and pass holder from middle and high school. Man, it was embarrassing." "What was it? When did you get it?" "It wasn't something I got. I made it myself for a summer project in the elementary school." Right. It was for a summer project in elementary school. Haha, David, you were really something. What about college after that? The other 3 guys looked at me with a smirk. "I went to art school but dropped out." "Dropped out, so just a high school grad. Must have been tough. We'll talk more about it later. Looks like the drinks will taste great tonight." I never imagined that Kyle, of all people, would be here. I felt overwhelmed, wanting to escape and head home immediately. We headed to the Italian bar where we were meeting the ladies. Throughout, Kyle kept prying into my current situation. "Do you know which university I went to?" "Yeah, I remember. You always had good grades." "That's right. I graduated from there and now work at the same publishing company as Sean." "So, David, what's your income now?" "Income? Yeah, income. Just tell me the number. I won't tell anyone." "About $25,000, I guess." $25,000, got it. Seems like you've had it rough. I'll cover your part today. Be grateful." "Oh, thanks. But in return, make sure you do a good job as my sidekick." "Okay." Haha, sidekick. Got it. I ended up being used and had to play the role of Kyle's sidekick in exchange for the treat. People usually become more mature as they age, but he seemed to have reverted to his middle and high school self. At the mixer, it was almost certain that I would become the butt of the jokes. We arrived at the Italian bar. The 5 ladies had already arrived and were waiting. "Nice to meet you all." The mixer began. I was surprised at how beautiful all the ladies were. Except for me, all the guys were in high spirits, and I felt out of place, just nodding along. Soon, Kyle started his extra introduction of me to the ladies. "This is David, a real tearjerker of a guy. In middle and high school, he used the wallet and card holder he made in elementary school until they were tattered." The ladies looked at me with a mix of pity and amusement, except for one who seemed unimpressed. "Oh, right, what about your wallet now, David? Show everyone." Reluctantly, I showed my long wallet. "Wow, still tattered, huh? That happens. It's something precious to me." Right, that makes sense. When you've struggled, you tend to cherish things more. And speaking of this poor guy's intriguing salary, a whopping $25,000, that's like my 3 months' earnings. No wonder his stuff looks beaten up. Haha. I've had enough. Just let him do whatever he wants. I couldn't help but feel annoyed with Kyle's smug attitude. "Excuse me, may I see that wallet?" A woman who seemed interested asked. "Sure, here you go." As Kyle said, "It's pretty worn out." Her name was Emily. Unlike the other 4 women who were used to mixers, she had been quiet from the start. She was petite, with her hair in a ponytail. Her natural makeup gave her a clean, fresh look. She was exactly my type among the 5 women. "Oh, I thought so. I have a handbag from the same maker as this one," she said. She showed me her handbag. I never expected to meet a woman carrying a handbag from our family's workshop. Their designs and durability are really great, aren't they? "How long have you been using this wallet?" "Well, I started using it in college, so about 9 years, I guess." Kyle, interrupting our conversation, said, 9 years, you should be able to afford a wallet like this, David," as he flaunted a famous French brand wallet on the table. There it was, Kyle's typical one-upmanship. In middle and high school, it was report cards, and now it's wallets. but I'm the one being treated. I have to play my part as the sidekick. Wow, Kyle, you're really something. When you show off a wallet like that, I'm speechless. But David, you seem to really take care of your belongings. Yeah, well, I still use the coin purse I made in elementary school, like Kyle mentioned. I left it at home though. Really? You're still using that legendary wallet? Kyle laughed out loud, hearing that I was still actively using the small wallet I made back in elementary school. Everyone else forced a smile, but Emily's reaction was different. Deciding he had flaunted enough, Kyle switched seats and started chatting up other women as if to say he was an elite. He casually put his arm around other women's shoulders, showing off his mixer expertise. Emily then spoke to me. So, you've been using the wallet you made in elementary school for almost 20 years now. Yeah, about 18 years, I guess. It's a keepsake for my dad. This long wallet too. I see. Emily didn't ask anything more about the wallet or the bag. Tired of being one-upped and seen only for my status at this mixer, I didn't want to share more about myself and just wished for time to pass quickly so I could leave. As the first part of the evening was drawing to a close, a staff member from the Italian bar told me, "Your ride is here." "Your ride, David, you leaving already? What a downer," Kyle said. "Yeah, oh, please continue to enjoy your evening, everyone. I have some urgent work to attend to, so I'll be excusing myself," I said, standing up. "Mr. Brown, your driver is here. Please come this way to the car," said a uniformed female driver as she entered the bar. "What, Mr. Brown? What do you mean, David?" Kyle and the others at the mixer were shocked. "I just took over the family business." "Took over the family business, but you said your income was $25,000. Sorry, I'm not very smart. I didn't quite understand the subject. Multiply that number by 12, and it's about right." "Kyle, thanks for today. I'm heading out." "What? $25,000 is not your yearly but monthly income?" "Wait a minute." Just as I was about to leave with the driver, one of the women suddenly shouted, "I can't take this anymore. I'm leaving too." "What's going on?" People dining around us turned to look. This guy touched my thigh and chest, and even tried to kiss me near the restroom. "He's the worst," she said, pointing at Kyle. "No, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything." "Wait, David." The mixer, which started in a fun atmosphere, quickly turned chaotic due to Kyle's inappropriate behavior. Eager to avoid getting dragged into the mess, I hurriedly left with the female driver. The next day, Sean came to the workshop. "David, sorry about yesterday. I heard what happened. Never knew Kyle was your middle and high school classmate." "It's okay, I had to leave early for work anyway, but yeah, it turned into quite a scene at the end." "About that, Kyle really messed up. Turns out the lady he upset was a major client's daughter, and her father is furious. I heard Kyle was already under house arrest pending an investigation." Sean mentioned that with how fast news spreads in the publishing industry, Kyle probably wouldn't have a place there anymore. "Kyle is smart. What a waste." "David, I heard how Kyle was making fun of you the whole time. I'm really sorry for inviting you." "It's fine, but I think I've had enough of mixers. I'll pass on any future invitations." "Yeah, this will be my first and last time organizing one too. I hope you can forgive me." I changed the subject to lighten the mood for Sean, who looked truly sorry. "Oh, by the way, I met a woman yesterday carrying a handbag made by us. I could clearly see our logo. I definitely made that bag myself. It was a great feeling." I recounted the event to Sean. "Her name was Emily, I think. Didn't talk much, but she seemed shy and gentle. That bag was a gift from me 3 years ago. Emily is a childhood friend of mine, same age as us." "Is that so?" "Emily said she wanted to talk more with you. She was caught up in the chaos when that client's daughter caused a scene." "With me?" "Actually, Emily is a big fan of your products. She owns many of the small items and bags. I started visiting this workshop because of her. I didn't even know what it was before then. That's great to hear. I'll have to tell my mom. She'll be happy to know our products are cherished. Sean's mood seemed to lift as he continued. I might as well tell you, the mixer was actually to help Emily, a fan of you and your products, get closer to you. Sean, you think too highly of me. I blushed. Having never dated a woman before. That's not true. I've known you for over 5 years, and seeing your dedication to work and your personality, I thought you'd be perfect for Emily. Isn't a quiet, herbivore type girl your style, Sean? After a pause, I replied. Emily was exactly my type when I first saw her. Then it's settled. I'll let her know. That's how my relationship with Emily began. On our first date, she said, I have something I want you to see. This. To my surprise, she showed me a light pink long wallet, a color variant of my black one. It had our logo and the stamp my father had made. My wallet was worn out from daily use, but Emily's was like new, cherished, and used only on special occasions. It was a gift from her parents to celebrate her college admission. She had become a fan of our products and occasionally visited our workshop to buy bags and accessories. This was undoubtedly made by my father, who passed away 9 years ago. Look, my wallet has his stamp too. The design and craftsmanship are identical, just different colors. I even wanted to take this wallet apart to see how it was made. Haha, it would be a shame to dismantle such a special gift, but it's nice that we both use these wallets as a pair. I'm sure my dad in heaven would be happy to see this. It felt like fate that I would see a wallet made by my late father being used as a pair like this. This wallet has helped me a lot. Depending on the color, it's believed to attract work and wealth. It's been a charm for my mom and me to spread our products to the world. I've never made a better wallet than this. It's an insurmountable wall for me. I'm forever grateful to my father. I became an instant fan of your products too. The handbag you have, it's one you made. I can tell by the stamp. Did you know? I even have small items with your mom's stamp on them. So, you're a self-confessed superfan of our products. I took something out of my bag. Emily, as a token of our relationship, please take this. I finished it last night, sacrificing some sleep. Wow, a cute beige wallet. It's a mid-wallet type. The logo is a new design, and it has your stamp too. The material is cordovan, made from horse hide, which is 3 times stronger than cowhide. I'm not good with words, but I hope you'll consider a relationship with me. Emily was moved to tears. In general, the psychology behind giving a wallet is that it is something you always carry with you when you go out, so it can mean I love you and want to be with you all the time. Understanding the sentiment, Emily wiped her tears and replied, I'd be delighted. I will always be a fan of your products and now, a big fan of you, David. That's how Emily and I began our relationship. I had always treasured things, but from now on, I vowed to cherish this loving woman even more.